Hey there, today I'm gonna show you 4 amazing underpromotions I came across. So let's start with the opening stage. After d4, d5 and c4 we get the queen's gambit, and there's a move which is fairly interesting for black, which is to play e5, going for what we call the Albin counter gambit. And the idea is to give the pawn e5, so here white normally takes on e5, getting a pawn. Here black's main idea is not to take on c4 but to play the move d4. And now black normally tries to get counterplay against this pawn e5. One idea being to go knight to c6 and then develop the other knight to g6, trying to counterattack this pawn e5. And here in this position, white's most common way to continue is to go knight to f3 and then to fianchetto the bishop, and even giving the pawn back, getting a quick development and a slight advantage. But another very natural move for white, which is not that good, is to play the move e3, trying to counterattack against this very strong pawn on d4. And here black's idea is not to take on e3, but to play the move bishop to b4, and this check is actually quite annoying. So in this position, white definitely doesn't want to play a move like into e2, so white will normally block the check. And a very tempting way to block the check, which is actually quite bad, is to play the move bishop to d2. Just want to mention that here, white can play a move like knight to d2, but after capturing on e3, black gets a very comfortable position. White has an extra pawn, but these pawns are actually not that nice, but it is actually even better than playing the move bishop to d2. Because after bishop to d2, here black has this very strong idea of capturing on e3, seemingly giving away a piece, and here again white has to take on e3, because otherwise after capturing on b4, now black gets this very strong move, e takes f2, trying to deflect the king from the defense of the queen. So here after king takes f2, black would simply capture the queen on d1, and the other alternative to defend the queen is to go king to e2, and here in this position black could trade queens and then capture the knight, and here we get a roughly balanced position. Black might even have ideas to attack this pawn e5, but even much better here is to capture the knight and underpromote to a knight, because by underpromoting to a knight we're giving a check, so white is not in time to trade queens on d8. And the idea is that after rook takes, then black gets this very strong move bishop to g4, giving a check, and then black will capture the queen on d1. So this is a very common opening trap in the Albin counter gambit, and if white doesn't capture the knight, white would have to play king to e1 to defend the queen, and here black has many options. Black so far still has an extra piece. Black will continue with queen to h4, giving a check. If white plays g3, then after queen to e4, we get a fork, and black is winning even more material. And if white moves the king, black so far still has an extra piece, even though this knight might be lost. But now black can continue developing with knight to c6, attacking the bishop. Then this bishop will develop, the rook will come to d8, so this is already a desperate position for white. So that trap is fairly common, but let's see another trap which involves the similar idea of underpromoting to a knight. So in this game, after d4, d5, c4, here black played the move e6, and after knight to c3, black played the move c5, we get the Tarrasch defense, and in this position, white captured on d5, which is fairly standard, and here the most common way for black to continue is to take back on d5 with the pawn, but pawn takes e4 is a move that has become increasingly popular, and here white normally continues with queen takes or even queen to a4. But in this game, white played a move which was probably not that strong, but at least for one game, it's quite an interesting move because it sets up a trap. Here white captured on e6. And in this position, black should have captured the pawn on e6, for example with the bishop, and black actually gets quite a good position because even though black gets this isolated pawn on d4, black is getting a fairly quick development. White also has to move the knight in this position, so black is developing very quickly and getting a good position. But instead here black captured the knight on c3 and completely missed white's idea, which is again very similar to the previous trap that we saw. We have this idea of deflecting the king from the defense of the queen. So here white captured the pawn f7, and the only way to defend the queen is to play king to e7. After king takes f7, white will simply capture the queen on d8. And here in this position, white captured the knight and underpromoted to a knight, giving a check in order to be in time to play the move bishop to g5, attacking black's king. And in this position, black captured the knight, and after bishop to g5, Now the game is pretty much over because white is going to have an overwhelming material advantage. Or the other alternative was to play the move king to e8, and in this position white could simply trade queens, and after king takes, even though this knight is going to be lost, after white captures on c3, white also gets a winning position because white is having 2 extra pawns. Black could capture the knight, but white could simply continue developing, and the position is technically winning for white. In addition to underpromoting to a knight, white might also underpromote to a bishop or a rook. So let's see this fascinating position where white missed this idea of underpromoting to a bishop. So here in this position, white definitely has an advantage. White has 2 extra pawns, and here white played the move e7, which looks very natural, but after knight to f3, black is getting some counterplay. White even has to be careful because after a move like king to g2, knight to h4 gives a double check, and black is going to capture white's queen. But after knight to f3, white tried king to f1, and black is still getting some counterplay against the king, and black even managed to draw the game in this position. But here white missed a very fascinating idea, which involved first sacrificing the queen and then underpromoting. So here queen to f7 was a very strong continuation, giving a check and then playing to take on g7. That's why black has to capture. And after pawn takes, here in this position, king to f8, which seems like logical follow-up to capture on e8, wouldn't work because after knight to g6, black has to give the queen in order to avoid the checkmate, and after pawn takes, we get this position, which is again technically winning for white. White has 2 extra pawns, and this pawn f7 is quite strong. But here black had this amazing resource of playing king to h7. And in this position, white has many ways to promote the pawn after capturing the rook. But the idea, first of all, if we promote to a queen, here white gets a very large material advantage, but black has this very nice move, queen to g2, sacrificing the queen, and no matter whether white takes with the king or with the knight, then we get this very nice stalemate, because the king doesn't have any squares to go, and the pawn on g7 is pinned. And here in this position, if white promotes to a knight, then after queen takes, black is even the one having an advantage in this position. But instead, here white had this very nice idea of promoting to a bishop. So after f takes e8, here white promotes to a bishop, and white gets a rook and 2 minor pieces plus a pawn for a queen. So this is already a material advantage. But more importantly, now white is going to attack black's king. Bishop to g6 and rook to d8 is a big threat. Knight to g6 might also come. So in this position, white simply gets a winning attack against black's king. So this is a very strange position on which underpromoting to a bishop was the winning continuation. And in this last position, we see a very strange case on which underpromoting to a rook is the strongest move in the position. So here, black's position seems quite desperate because this pawn on g6 cannot be stopped. But black tried a very interesting idea. First, playing the move b2, giving away this pawn, in order to try to create a stalemate position. So here, white captured this pawn on b2, so white was controlling that pawn. And here black played the move king to g5, attacking the pawn. White has to move the pawn, otherwise black will capture the pawn on g6 first and then the pawn on g4. So g7 is the only winning attempt. And here black played the interesting king to h6. So here whenever we have endings, we definitely need to be careful about promoting to a queen immediately. And here in this position, black promoted to a rook and black resigned. The point is that after promoting to a queen, we get this very nice stalemate position, where this pawn on g4 is actually controlling the h5 square and forcing a stalemate. And if white promotes to a knight, then here black has king to g5, and now there's no way to defend this pawn on g4, and we'll get a draw because after black captures the pawn on g4, white will simply have insufficient material to give a checkmate. So after promoting to a rook, black resigned because here black only has one real move, which is king to h7, but now white will simply move the rook and win the game. And in this position, by the way, promoting to a bishop was also possible. It was just a bit more complicated, but after king to g5, here white can defend the pawn on g4, and now white will simply bring the king and support the advance of the pawn, and this should also be a winning position for white. In any case, underpromoting to a rook was definitely simpler, and this was just a very strange situation on which underpromoting to a rook is better than promoting to a queen. And by the way, if you want to see a very instructive position on which underpromoting to a rook is the best way to go, I have a very instructive video about it. In any case, I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.